That schism about how do you view human nature as well. The human nature schism, are we inherently good and wonderful beings or inherently flawed and evil demonic beings? When in the truth of the matter is, we're neither. Those two conditions are just that, conditions. They're not our nature. Our nature is that we are programmable such that we can become either of those extremes if we're programmed well or badly. So when I was looking for an image to represent anarchy and anarchists, I didn't see any good ones because they give you these utterly ridiculous concepts of anarchists are people that are all about creating chaos and damage in society. Okay? You look up anarchy on Google Images, anarchist on Google Images, you'll get the so-called black bloc, these children that are nothing but communists in disguise, okay, who think that communism is anarchy, all right, because they've read the absolutely polluted writings of Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, etc., okay, and advocate, yeah, well, let's take everything, give all resources into the hands of the state. We'll magically be free then. And then they think anybody who disagrees with them is a dyed-in-the-wool, crony capitalist that believes money is the solution to everything, and human greed should see no bounds, That's why people have a hard time with my work. I don't believe in any of it. I'm out of the mind control, out, 100% out. All of those systems do nothing but lead to control and slavery. Okay? And that's what other people need to get out. Out is the answer. Out is the solution. Get to the outside of that so you can see it from the outside for what it is. Something that destroys human innovation, creativity, freedom, love, etc. That's all those systems do. That's all they ever have done. So when I was looking for an image to represent a real anarchist, I didn't want to be too egotistical and just put my face up there, or some of my other friends who are also real anarchists. I saw this meme on Facebook and I said, yeah, that's it. Christ, the ultimate spiritual warrior, the ultimate anarchist. And again, please don't fill up my inbox saying, don't you know all about astrotheology? I could write books on astrotheology. I probably may even do that in the future, okay? I get it's allegorical. I get there is doubts to the historicity of the actual historical figure, and I don't care because it's the message that matters. Who was Christ warring against? He was warring against the established religious institutions of his time, the Pharisees and Sadducees. Okay? When he put out works that went against their so-called law, okay, there was a big uprising against his word. Then the banks of the day became involved because when he went to the temples and they were charging ridiculous interest rates on temple coins, preventing people who actually wanted to go to the temple and worship, they couldn't. So then he freaked out in the temple and turned all the bankers against him. And then who ultimately did the crucifixion? The state, the Roman Empire, which was the police and military of his day. And people in the actual religion who say they're into the scriptures can't even read them and see the institutions that this being was warring against was religion, money, and government. They can't even see that when it's right out in the open in their face. And these are the things they put up on a pedestal. It's a joke and they're fake-ass Christians. Okay? It's called looking at the exoteric, the outside, and never getting into the deep, fundamental, core, spiritual, and moral truths that lie at the center. Because they're too concerned about all the trappings, So the ultimate anarchist is right there. And what I'm here today to tell you is that there is no such thing as an awake being that has ever been a statist. Never one. Every truly awake being that has ever existed in the cosmos is an anarchist. And can never not be one who is an anarchist. One who believes that there is no such thing as the legitimacy of ruling and owning other people. because that's what an anarchist is. Someone who believes there is no legitimacy to the external rulership or ownership of other people, or in other words, that there is no legitimacy to slavery. That's what anarchy really is. And I'm going to explain that right now. Okay, a statist is an individual who erroneously believes that there is such a thing as authority vested in certain human beings, magically giving them the right to rule over other people. Without euphemism, if we stop euphemizing things and we're honest with ourselves for a moment, a statist is a person who believes in the legitimacy of slavery. By definition, that's what a statist is. Conversely, an anarchist is one who knows that there could never be legitimacy to authority or government because those terms are simply euphemisms for violence and slavery, which are always immoral and always in opposition to natural law, the laws of morality. So once again, every single blanket statement, statist, every person in the history of the world who has ever advocated for the legitimacy of the state has always been asleep and always will be asleep. Only anarchists, true anarchists, are consciously awake. There is no such thing as a person who's awake and believes in the legitimacy of government or authority. Cannot be done. You cannot have it both ways. What anarchy really means, because you do a word association game on the street with people and they couldn't tell you what the word really means. See, this is how mind control works, folks. Like I said, the obfuscation of the definitions of words by endless repetition. Again, here's my pen/laser pointer, okay? I kept telling a child from the moment they're born, this is a spoon, this is a spoon, this is a spoon, this is a spoon, and kept repeating that over and over and over and over every day of the child's life. Putting a pen in front of them and saying, that's called a spoon, that's called a spoon. The child would eventually believe that that object is a spoon. They would use the word spoon to represent the object that is actually a pen. Okay? So here's what's been done. Controllers don't want you to know what anarchy really means. So they're going to keep repeating, anarchy means chaos, anarchy is chaos, anarchy is chaos, anarchy is chaos, over and over and over again. And that mind control technique of repetition works beautifully. I use it all the time. Okay? But for the right reason. You got to keep repeating yourself for people to get something. They don't even start to consider it until it's been repeated about 7 or 8 times. It's in one ear and out the other unless it's said over and over again. Anarchy as a word comes from the Greek language. In ancient Greek, a or an, the prefix tacked onto the beginning of a word root, means without or the absence of something that you tack it onto. And then the second part of the word comes from the Greek noun archon. Archon means a master or a ruler. And there's a specific connotation to an archon. An archon is not one who has mastered themselves. It's not like, oh, that person who understands the truth and is in true self-government, they are a master. No, that's not the connotation of the word archon in ancient Greek. Archon meant, we're driving up to the plantation now, there's the master of the house who owns all the slaves on this plantation. That is what archon means in ancient Greek. Okay? So it is the master over slaves, one who owns other people. All right? A ruler over subjects. That's the connotation of the word archon. Now we put them together. An archon, anarchon. Okay, which is where the word anarchy comes from. And it means the absence of rulers, as in the absence of slave owners. Well, if there's no slave owners, then that means there's no slaves. There's no masters and there's no slaves. And that's all the word anarchy has ever meant. No rulers, no masters. The word anarchy does not and never has meant without rules. When people equate, if there's anarchy, there will not be rules, it's a complete logical fallacy. That's not what the word itself means. There's always got to be rules. You are never going to take the rules out of effect. You want to know why? You're not the maker of them. You didn't put them into effect. The creator of the universe did that, and you're not that force. You are not God. Okay? So you're not going to take natural law out of effect. It's always in effect. It's always the supreme force operating in the universe, which is why I represented it as the tarot card of the king, which is called justice in the tarot deck. Justice, the law, natural law on its throne. The truth that will never be destroyed and never be unseated from its position of true authority. That's the only authority. That's it. Anarchy does not mean without rules. It literally means without rulers, without masters. Anarchy means the absence of slavery, or in other words, true freedom. If you told people the root of anarchy is without rulers, without masters, no rulers, no masters, and you said, please, in one word, tell me what that phrase, no rulers, no masters, means to you, 99.9% of people are going to say it means freedom. And yet, you do this word association game with people in your family, your friends, on the street, and they'll tell you it means chaos, which again is the opposite side of that chart about natural law expressions. Okay? How could you start at freedom and arrive in chaos when freedom is order by definition? It brings about order. It's the only thing that can bring about order because it's based in the awakening of consciousness or love. That's the only way you can have freedom. It's based in morality. Anarchy means that true anarchy is understanding that it's not man's law that we need to respect and put up on a pedestal and try to live our lives according to. It's the laws of the creator of the universe that we need to do that with, which is natural law, moral law, the true difference between right and wrong behavior. Being awake means recognizing the critical importance of both free will and personal responsibility. Two things many people don't want to even acknowledge or look at. And this means having a deep understanding of what moral culpability is. Because when we're talking about responsibility, what we really mean is who's responsible for that having been manifested in the world. And this is another thing a lot of New Agers want to leave out and not talk about. You know, they want to wash right over this or say, oh no, we don't need to talk about who's at fault. It's nobody's fault. Nobody's at fault. Nobody's to blame. Well, there are people to blame. There are people at fault through erroneous, bad thinking, bad decision making, bad judgment. There are people who are to blame for our condition. And I would say everybody who continues to support and condone those bad modalities of thinking are to blame. That's why I say I'm not involved in that process. I'm out of those modes of thought. I don't lend my behavior to those modes of behavior. So I'm not causing those things. Me individually, personally. And there are many other people who are in that condition that through no fault of their own is the world keep going into a state of ever spiraling decay into immorality and slavery. The problem is most people are at fault for that condition because they will not change their thinking. They will not abandon their religions, their false religions. Moral culpability is the determination of who is ultimately at fault or deserving of blame, or in other words, who is responsible for the commission of actions which have resulted in harm or loss to other individuals. The word culpable literally means at fault or deserving of blame, from the Latin noun culpa, which means fault or blame. A dangerous New Age movement deception is that blame is invalid as a concept, and it should never exist. We should get rid of the whole concept of blame. Okay? When people buy into this notion, it quickly descends into the idea that no one is ever truly responsible for anything that manifests in this world. That's what they're really saying when they say, don't judge, don't blame. Nobody's at fault. Things just happen. It just magically got that way. No, things don't just happen. According to law, every effect is preceded by its cause. Things are caused to happen. They don't just magically occur.